Hey, what's up, everybody? Mogion Monster here, and welcome to Why the Fascination, or WTF as we like to call it. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. And welcome to tonight's show. Tonight's a special show for me. I'm looking to turn my light up. Hold on, guys. As you guys know, I love stories, and I listen to narrated stories constantly. So my idea was to bring on who I think are the queens of cryptid. Three narrators that I love listening to. So I hope you guys enjoy listening to them too. I know you do because I've seen the comments. So yeah, I'm not even gonna sit here and babble. I don't have time to say hi to everybody. So hi everybody. Usually I do a roll call, you know that. But yeah, everybody, welcome to tonight's show. It's great to see you. And on that note, welcome everybody. I want to say welcome to Leslie from Cryptids Canada, Neoma Finn, Open to Doubt, and Nance Warren from Buckeye Bigfoot. Happy Valentine's Day, ladies.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Well, thank you very much.
So yeah, I just as you just heard, I've always been a fan of you guys, or ladies, excuse me. And there's just something. Sorry, I'm outside, and so was the noise. Car just went by. I'm fairly new to YouTube, like 5 years, and I got sucked in by a Bigfoot story. And I was just like, wait a minute, what is this? Because I never really paid attention to Bigfoot. And so I started listening more and more and more, and I went from what the hell is this to there's something going on out there. And I get all my knowledge from your stories, and some research, or search. I don't research. But so when I started this channel, I was like, why are all these people? I would see all the same people in different shows. Like, why are they here? What's their deal? Like, what's their story? So I created this channel called Why the Fascination. What is it that brings you back? What is your story? Why this genre? This is such a strange genre. So I'm going to present the question to you. Why the fascination? Leslie, why did you pick, the cryptid scene, or Bigfoot, or I know you've had some experiences, so I guess that kind of lends to that.
Yeah, it kind of picked me, and it's followed me my whole life. I told my story on here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And, yep, that's pretty much it. I denied it, and then couldn't deny it anymore. Something was going on, and that was all it was. Once the internet hit, and I could pretty much verify the things that I was experienced or had experienced, and then some of the crazy stuff that was going on in my life at the time, which wasn't, it was more paranormal. That was it. Like, I was hooked. And then I have to say, we have to give some kind of credit to what's his face, the hoaxer. I'm so bad at names. Do you remember the hoaxer?
Which one?
Yeah, I was going to say, there's been a few of them out there.
Bigfoot in the freezer.
Oh, there were
Rick Dyer.
Rick Dyer.
Yeah. Yes.
Because he really, that was it. Like, once I heard that, wow, somebody actually, it was mainstream news with the Bigfoot, right? And that was it. Everything took off from there. And I was online constantly researching it. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Yeah. Because I know, like, Cam, I'm going to bring Cam up because I know Cam has a big part in everybody's, had everybody here. I know, like, he has never had a day one. I mean, he hasn't had any paranormal, UFO, Bigfoot, nothing. So he surprised me that he's in this field. I didn't mean to bring him up to take away from you guys, but like, Neoma, I know you've had experiences too as well, right?
Yeah. My fascination started long before my experience, though.
Oh,
I was all of about 8 years old in my living room, had just finished watching Night of the Living Dead with all of my
mhm.
siblings are much older than me. They're 18, 16, 13, or 18, 16, 12, and 5.5 years older than me.
Oh, wow.
So they were all at least teenagers, if not adults at that time. Yeah, my mom and dad had 3 sons, and then they waited 7 years and had my sister, and she was a noops. She was a girl, so it was okay. Then they waited 5.5 more years and had me, and I wasn't a noops. I was an oh hell no. The yeah, but I they my brothers and their wives and or girlfriends got up and left. My sister went to bed, and I was laying on the couch, too lazy to move. And the next movie came on, and it was Legend of Boggy Creek, and I was hooked. I was all of my. I was born and raised in Illinois, but my whole family is from Arkansas, and it happened in my what I considered my home state, even though I didn't grow up there. I'd spent so much of my youth there. That was my state, and so the summer after that, Peter Graves did a documentary, a 2-part documentary that started showing on. I don't remember what channel it was, but it was on one of the 3 networks. Back then, that's all there was. That's how old I am, folks.
Right.
And the um, and I don't remember. I think it was called Mysterious Monsters or something
Mm.
like that. And that was the first time I got to see the Patterson Gimlin film. And I remember being so terrified by that footage that for years, if it came on television, I watched it like this. I mean, I had to literally watch it from memory because it was just so terrifying to me. I lived in a small town in Illinois on the Mississippi River. My wildest dreams, I never thought where I lived there would ever be any such of a creature because I associated it with the swamps or the mountains, but certainly not the Midwest. And in 19, well, there was a sort of a prelude encounter in late November, early December of '84, and then the actual as close as I ever want to come to having a sighting, which was basically just a glimpse of a shadow stepping across a
Mm.
driveway. But it was, I remember thinking, the way I was looking up at it, and it was probably 7 to 8 feet tall. But when you're sitting down low to the ground and looking up, it looks more like 10 feet.
Sure.
And of course, over the years of my mind, that's grown. Every time I, I go back to that moment, at this point, it's about 18 feet. But um, and I had that experience. And my thing was, once I had the experience, I wanted to tell everybody about it. I wanted the whole world to know because I wanted them to know that we had them right there in the middle of the country, and I got made fun of. I was humiliated. I was married to an idiot, and for him to call me an idiot was really hard because I was like, I'm pretty sure my IQ is twice yours, buddy. And he and his friends made fun of me. I saw somebody say earlier that these 3 ladies don't look like they know anything about fishing. Well, I used that. I was fishing the night that happened, and yeah, I took the old Garcia and the ugly stick and tossed him. I was done fishing. But the thing is that, once it happens, no matter whether you knew about it before or you didn't, whether you had a fascination before or you didn't, once it happens, you have 2 options. And that is to accept that you've lost your mind or go out in the woods and try to find it.
Mm.
And I'm still looking for my mind. So,
Not going back to the woods, huh?
well, no, I go back. I mean, I don't now because I have, my leg is, I need to have both knees replaced, and my left knee is to the point that I hobble. And I just moved them today, but I keep my crutches reasonably close at hand because I never know when I'm going to be reduced to using them.
Oh.
And so I can't go out in the woods right now. And I've gained tons of weight from not being out in the woods. So even if I went out in the woods, I'd have to roll or get somebody to roll me. And so I don't go out and research now, but there was a time, and back when I thought, well, the only people who research must be out in Oregon or somewhere down in the Florida swamps. And so I would go out by myself at night with a flashlight, no weapons. And it's not that I disagree with weapons, but some people shouldn't have a gun, and I'm one of them, because I'll shoot you. I don't have the disposition to own a gun, and I know that about myself. And as much as I want to protect myself from Bigfoot, I will shoot you. It's just all there is to it. I have that temper, and I have the kind of pull the trigger first and ask questions later personality that says don't have a gun. So I go out. I used to go out without any kind of real protection. I wouldn't do that now, and the reason for that is because in recent years I've gotten really into learning about Dogman and Bigfoot. I suppose my encounter wasn't vicious enough to be truly afraid of Bigfoot. And I have no real reason to be afraid of Dogman other than the stories that I've heard. I've never heard anybody talk about, he sat down at the campfire and smoked a doobie with me. I've actually heard people tell me that about Bigfoot. Don't believe it, but I have had people tell me that about Bigfoot. I haven't had anybody tell me that about Dogman yet. So that's my...
I just can't believe somebody would make up that story.
Oh, you have no idea.
Well, I'm sure we'll get to that, because I think I have some questions about some stories too. Well, right on. Nance, how did you get into this genre?
Like a lot of people, it started when I was very young. The proverbial, well, not the proverbial. I've told this story before. When I was young, my dad and I used to watch In Search Of religiously. And there came the episode, the famous one about Bigfoot. And I was probably 6 or 7, maybe. I had no idea such a thing existed. And, my little brain was blown that there was this thing out there. And fast forward, I read everything I could. Fast forward a few years later, early 1980s, a cousin by marriage out of Kentucky, her and her husband had moved up towards Zanesville, Blue Rock Forest area. And they had a very intense encounter on their property that happened several times. As a matter of fact, it was my first story that I put out on Buckeye Bigfoot back in 2019. Because I knew these people, they were rock solid. Never had they ever fibbed about anything. They didn't stretch the truth. These were distant family, but yet we knew them. So that reignited it all over again. And it just kind of followed me through my whole life. A million people have asked me, have I had an encounter? The fact is, no, I have not. I've never had a single thing out there when I've been camping or hiking that I could not find a reason for or explain, or at least I'm pretty sure that was just something normal. I never had the hair-raising experience. I never had the feeling I was being watched that I couldn't, again, explain. So I'd like to say I had some wonderful or scary encounter even, but nope, not at all.
Any paranormal or anything like that?
When I was very young, yes. When I was about 4 or 5, I don't really remember it, but my mother used to say that me and a neighbor child, she was pretty sure that they had a poltergeist in their house. There was a lot of strife in the house. Their father was away in Vietnam, and there was a lot going on. My mother swore that me and this young boy were sitting there and talking to someone on the steps. We were answering in unison. And my mom and this boy's mother, who were good friends, came down, and they're like, who are you talking to? We both said this lady, and there was no one there on the stairs. And this happened several times that we would talk to this woman. I have no recollection, but that was just a story my mom used to tell. She swore by it. And again, she was not the kind. My mom didn't have a sense of humor. Let's put it that way. She didn't have that kind of an imagination. So,
I've never had any Bigfoot experience either. I'm just, like I said, I heard a couple stories and I was like hooked. But my experiences are paranormal. I've had some strange things happen, and I know they happened. I tell stories about it. So my thought was, well, I believe in, ghosts and stuff like that. So why wouldn't I give Bigfoot a chance, since it's flesh and blood, supposedly, So that's kind of how I got into this. This channel, I created it just so people could come and hang out and talk about their their experiences, or half the time we talk about fishing. It's all over the place. We can talk about anything. I had asked Leslie recently about like her favorite story. You guys must have a favorite story that you have read and just it sticks with you. Anybody want to share?
Who wants to go first?
So who's going first?
Nance.
Oh, I actually have two. One is about a retired military working dog who ran up against a Bigfoot, and that was in, I want to say it was Ross County, Ohio. That one really bothered me to even have to narrate it, but it's still one of my favorites. The next one I put out last year, they'd written in, and it was from Canada. I can't remember where. I want to say Edmonton, Canada, Alberta, I think. And that one is about, the title was that a Sasquatch, once they get your scent, will follow you to the ends of the earth. And it was really interesting. It was about this man's grandfather from about the turn of the earliest 20th century, when he was still a trapper, when Alberta was still pretty wild. And it was really a riveting story. I'd give anything if he'd write more in, I've emailed him twice. He's like, I don't have anything else to tell you. So, but yeah, it was definitely one of the more popular ones. That one was a real showstopper. That was my favorite personal. I think I went back and read it just for myself a couple times. I'd give anything if he would publish his grandpa's stories. Anything.
Yeah. I like the old ones like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how about you, Neoma?
Well, I don't do a lot of encounter. I do background research and odd things that have happened. Of course, I'm not strictly cryptid either. I do paranormal and just odd things. So I was trying to think, because I do edit for Cam. So I was trying to think of one of the stories on his channel that I may have edited and I remember one in particular. A guy had gone out early in the morning deer hunting, and he climbed up in a stand and he kept hearing strange racket around him. And finally he looked down and there was a massive alpha male under him. And it was about to go into battle with another massive alpha male. And the man was trapped in the tree underneath them, and they were tearing each other up, and he couldn't get away. He was stuck there. And he had to wait out the fight. And when finally the fight ended, the winner sat down under his tree and he still couldn't get away. And so it was nearly dark before he got out of there. And I remember thinking, man, if it had looked up, or if they'd looked up once, So that's probably, that's one that really struck me. I think if I had to go back and talk about any and all of the encounters that I've heard over the years, there's one in particular that really struck me, and it has to do with the fact that what happened with me is what made me realize what was so horribly dangerous about our situation. And that is, it was out in Washington, and the family had moved out there. The dad had gotten a job working, I assume, for a lumber company. And they were living in a cabin out there pretty remotely. And the dad would take the only vehicle, and he'd go into town or go to work, not necessarily into town, but he'd go to work. And this house that they had rented, they rented from his foreman on the job. And the little boy started talking about the cowboy man that kept coming to the fence and talking to him.
I remember this one.
And at one point, I don't remember exactly how it came about, but at one point, this thing tried to steal the little boy away. And the mother rescued him. She was outside hanging up laundry, and she got him away in time. And then eventually, the dad quit coming into work, and the foreman drove out to see what was going on. And when he got to the house, it had been abandoned. The doors were open, torn off. Windows were shattered. Things were thrown around. And we're not talking just things like the refrigerator was thrown around. And they never heard from him again, didn't know if they got away but the dad had gone to the foreman and said, what do you know about this cowboy man? Well, the way the kid described it, it was clearly a Bigfoot. So that's one that really has stuck with me over the years. But that didn't come from my channel. I believe I first heard that, if I'm not mistaken, I heard that first on Wes Germer's show. What in the world is that called?
Sasquatch Chronicles.
That's
Yeah.
the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can never remember the name of his show.
Yeah, no,
So-
Sasquatch Chronicles was my initiation to the Bigfoot world.
Mhm.
That was where I heard my first story and was just like, what? But I stuck with it and listened, and and my favorite story that my story that I've ever heard was from there as well. But I'll get to that one. Leslie, I know you just told this recently.
Yeah.
Retelling it.
It was the Bigfoot that sort of saved the two little girls when they lost their mother, and they were sent to stay with the grandparents that they didn't even know, and they didn't have much room, and they were in a rundown house in the woods, and they let the little girls sleep in a small bed on their screened-in porch, and they would cry to sleep. Their mother just died. She was hit by a car, I think. And they would cry themselves to sleep every night. And the grandparents were sympathetic, but they were old, and one was deaf, and they yelled constantly. And one night, the oldest daughter, I don't know how, I can't remember how she realized it, but there was a Bigfoot crouched down looking in at them on this bed. And that was it. The next night she came back, and she would watch them from the woods, but never let them follow her, right? And I did, funny enough, after I retold the story about 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, they never heard that I had told their story originally 2 years ago. So when I retold the story as my favorite story, the oldest daughter reached out to me and said that the house is torn down long ago, and the grandparents left them the property, and they were there in a motorhome right now. And so she promised if something come of it, she would let me know, and I hope she does, because that'd be
incredible.
Yeah.
It was hard, because
Years
when I read
later.
that story, I cried. I had to keep stopping. I'm so sympathetic, and I cry and choking up, and you guys can all hear it. Oh God, she's crying again. I can't help it. I get really emotional.
There's
And
nothing wrong with that.
some of these stories, some of these people, the stuff they go through when it comes, the fear. And if it's not fear, it's just the most amazing love, like realistically. And I know my subscribers, they're all like me. They want to hear the good stories, but there's not a lot of good stories. Like, I try to find them just because I know their preferences, but they're very dangerous creatures, and that's the fact of life, So, anyways,
Yeah,
They're wild animals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most Bigfoot stories aren't feel good stories. They're
Yeah.
get the shit scared out of you stories.
yeah,
Yeah. I had mentioned this the other day. My favorite that really convinced me a story was on Wes Germer, and it was called "I Shouldn't Be Alive," and it was about this British woman who was in the States on business. She was in the Pacific Northwest, and she had an appointment up there, or business up there, but she had like a day off or two before she had to tend to her business, and she was an amateur photographer. So she wanted to go down to the beach in, I guess it was Northern California. It was, and photograph sea otters. So somebody recommended she take this trail and go to the beach, and she gets to the beach, but she's in the woods on the path going to the beach, and she hears something walking through the, in the bushes. And so she kind of like stops and looks, and she sees 3 adult and like 2 juvenile Bigfoots walk on all fours by them. And she's like, what the hell is this? And they disappear out of sight. And she walks over to an opening that goes down to the beach. And the male is in the water. The two females are sitting there, and the kids are just playing. And they didn't know she was there. And she was going to go take a picture, and she dropped her lens cap. The lens cap fell off her camera and hit the ground and rolled down the hill to where they were. And the way she tells this story, I mean, the male came out and was going to kill her. There's no doubt in my mind it was going to kill her, but the female Bigfoot stopped it from happening, and they had like this domestic dispute, as she described it. And she ended up waking up. She passed out just before this thing came at her, and she woke up like 10 yards from her car with her coat was pulled up over her head because she had been dragged. Obviously, she was bruised and bloody down one side of her body from being dragged. But to hear this woman tell this story, it was just like that convinced me that they're out there.
Mm-hmm.
Still want to see one myself. I know it sounds stupid. Be careful what you wish for, but I really want to see one.
No, I get that. I want to see one too, from a moving vehicle about a mile away. Yeah, I don't want any up close shots, but I want to see another one. I want to prove to myself that what I saw that night wasn't my imagination. And I think that that's what a lot of people go through, is they start doubting themselves, and the next thing they know, they have to go back out in the woods. They have to prove that they're not crazy. You have to go out there and find your mind, or accept that it's lost forever. It's one or the other.
And people have experiences and they don't talk about it. They don't know where to go with it. My good friend, I'm sure he's in chat, Jay Fritz, he came on and told his story, but I was like the second channel he told it to, but he carried that story for 55 years. That's a long time to live with that. And he didn't tell anybody about it.
I have been married to my husband. We moved into this house 7 years ago today, and we were married the following November. So we've been married 6.5 years now. And he found out that I knew anything about Bigfoot when I told him that a man named Cameron Buckner was going to let me do some editing for him 2 years ago. He's like, for what? Bigfoot stories? And that's when I said, listen, you need to know something.
We got to talk.
And he was really shocked. He had no idea. He did not know that.
What was his take on it?
He doesn't believe. But this is what he says. He says, I know people are seeing something. Are you guys familiar with Martin Groves? Have any of you ever?
No.
He has one of the wildest stories I've ever heard come out of the LBL. He's been on television shows, and in fact, it turns out he only lives about 5 miles down the road from me. I didn't even know that, but
that's where Jay had his experience
at the LBL.
Yeah,
that's a crazy place. I like to go there, but I always am on edge when I'm there. Anyway, Martin, his story, it's a Dogman Bigfoot combination type thing, and it culminates in the fact that he saw a hunter go into the woods. That hunter never came out of the woods, and he saw the powers that be tow his truck away. He saw a body come out in a body bag, but there was never anything on the news about a hunter being killed. It was like this man just vanished. And in the meantime, I think they were turkey hunting. They may have been deer hunting. I don't remember anymore, but I feel like they were turkey hunting. He and the guy that he was out there with had been chased out of the woods by something. And then they stayed that night, and they were so under attack that they ran out in the middle of the night to get get to safety, that they believed their lives were in danger. And so why did I bring up Martin Groves? That's the thing that worries me about my mind. I go down a road and then I can't remember the path I was taking.
No, I can relate.
Yeah.
I walk in the bathroom, forget what I went in there for.
Oh, I remember. So we were in Paris last summer, Paris, Tennessee, at Josh Turner's the Cryptids Con that he put on, and it was nice. It was small, but it was really nice. I enjoyed it. Barton Nunley was there. Martin Groves was there. Not Seth Breedlove, but the guy that wears the similar hat.
Blackburn.
Yes, Lyle Blackburn was there.
Blackburn.
Maybe Seth was there. I don't remember. Anyway, there were quite a few big names there. It was really interesting. Got to hear a lot of people speak. One of the people who spoke was Martin Groves. And I can only go so far, be somewhere so long these days before the pain gets to be too bad and I have to leave. And it was one of those situations. By about 3 o'clock, I had to get up and walk out. And we got in the car and we just finished listening to Martin talk. And probably a 2.5 hour drive home, because we live here in Tennessee. All I heard all the way home is that man saw something. That man experienced something. I don't know what's out there. I've never seen one, and I'm going to have to see one before I'm a believer. But whatever that man saw, it scared him, and I can tell he saw something. And so that's Brad's attitude. That's my husband's attitude. Not 100%. He's not going to believe until one walks up and kisses him on the nose. But when that happens, there'll be a certain amount of preparation, because you can't be married to me and not have that. My whole world is, but I think that he's open-minded is the best way I can put it. He's certainly not a naysayer. My ex-husband, the one I was married to years and years and years ago, he was horrible. He wouldn't, even though one of his friends, it turned out, after we were at a cookout, and of course they always would goad me into talking about it so that they could make fun of me, and because I needed so desperately to talk about it, even if I knew what was going to come, I would. Back then, I eventually got to where I didn't talk about it for probably 20 years.
Wow.
But there was a time before I finally just shut up and quit talking, that I felt like I needed to tell anybody and everybody who would listen. And after one of those particular cookouts, and they were all sitting around laughing at me and making their nasty jokes and stuff, Jamie, one of his friends, came over and he said, "I'm going to tell you a secret. I saw something in the same place you saw it." And what he described to me was a juvenile, whatever. And so there goes my stomach again. So even though he had a friend who said that he saw, of course, Jamie wasn't about to climb up on the same cross I was on, so he didn't tell a whole lot of people. My ex probably didn't even know it, but I wasn't the only one who had an experience down there. That's for sure. So,
well, it's good validation for you,
Yeah, absolutely. I still, when I go home, which I guess I haven't in a few years, but when I would go back home for years, that was one of the places I would drive down to. It's an odd location in that it's remote, but it's still almost in the middle of town. And in fact, you can pinpoint the location if you follow Interstate 80 to where it splits off to 280, and where you see 280 cross over the Mississippi River. The cabin we lived in and the pond across from that cabin that it happened at are almost directly under that bridge. So you can pinpoint that location. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, and it's it's a populated area. It's not remote. So whenever somebody,
I mean, you hear some stories that they are in some odd places, like rural places that you're like, or or urban, I should say, that you're like, what do you mean? You saw one where? But I'm still on. I want to believe they exist. To me, I guess it's romantic. I want them to exist. But until I do see one, I'm still going to have my doubts. I support everybody who says they've seen it. I don't question it. But for myself, I want to see one.
You should reach out to Todd Standing, because he actually, you don't believe him?
Anybody that charges people to go see one is
But don't forget, though, he uses that money to do more and more research. He also, I don't know if you guys know this, but he used his life savings to go to court against the Canadian government,
trying to make it a declared animal or a endangered species or something.
Yeah, because he knew of too many people that wanted to go out and shoot them. Excuse me. So I don't see that somebody who would spend their life savings on a hoax. That's my thinking, anyways.
With Todd, he had a bad reputation, and I was guilty of letting public opinion sway mine.
Mm-hmm.
But after a few interviews and seeing other stuff he had done, I changed my opinion. I still don't, I didn't like certain things about him, his attitude, his arrogance, whatever it was.
He is arrogant. I'll give you that.
It rubbed me the wrong way, but yeah. I tried to change my opinion and not let everybody else's opinion sway mine. I got on that bandwagon if everybody else was on it. I was like, wait a minute, I'm not giving this guy a fair break.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a little more respect for him, but there are things that he's done that are questionable. But I don't, he says, "Oh, my success rate is 90% or whatever when I take people out." It's like, how do you guarantee something like that?
Yeah, I don't know, because he's had a couple of really bad experiences that anybody I know, if they had that same experience, they wouldn't go near the woods ever again. But I don't know.
I'm sure most people have seen that video where he was surrounded and was waving the flare and screaming, and it was. I didn't know what to make of it.
Yeah,
it looked convincing.
Well, apparently, when it's not just been him, he's been out in the wherever it is that he goes, Sylvanic or whatever. He takes a film crew. So all of those guys have seen exactly what he sees, and they will like testify
to that.
Yeah. And so, I find that, and I don't know why, and I'm not meaning you by any means, but somebody starts these rumors. And I don't know why, because we all have to, and it seems to me that the more information we put out there, the only thing it's going to be just good that comes from it. And if somebody had undoubted proof, I would be so happy that, I wouldn't want to stifle their proof, or, you know what I mean?
Sure. And you would hope it was actual proof.
Right.
Whereas other people, no matter what you produce and the proof you provide, they're not going to believe it. You're just going to be like, no.
Exactly. But do you remember that young girl who was out turkey hunting, and she actually got a video of what appeared to be
the two of them
crucified her, and she wasn't even in this, this
community
world, and they crucified her. And it's like, why would somebody do that to themselves? I don't like.
I thought that was a good video.
It was a good video. I thought so too, but she'll never do it again.
For you guys who don't know the video, there's a young lady. She's deer hunting in a tree stand. She might have even been turkey hunting.
She was turkey hunting.
She was turkey hunting.
Yeah.
camoed out.
Yeah.
And she happened to have a camera and saw two Sasquatch walk from left to right.
Yeah.
One came and then another came, and then they got to a certain point and it bent down and picked something up. They weren't sure if it was a juvenile, it could have been a deer, but yeah, I mean, that was, to me, that was a convincing video.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of videos out there that I've seen that I thought were convincing, and others were like, oh, that's a hoax or that. I'm like, you sure? You know,
Yeah.
we're always going to have the naysayers, so it's hard to know what's real and what's not. I'm just a sucker and want to believe in everything.
Mhm.
So you've had these great stories. And you don't have to tell the stories, but did you guys ever put up a story that you regretted, where you're like, ugh,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yep. Because I'm so short on stories that even though, but now I try. The whole basis for my channel is to not judge, and to let people who need to tell their story have a forum to do that. But sometimes those stories you're just like, but I tell them anyways because I can't be a hypocrite.
no, I agree.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they're like, well, do these stories get vetted? Okay, so you're talking about a creature that most people don't believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And you may get 10 emails in a week, or you may get 100, or you may get 1,000, depending on the size of your channel and how people are willing to reach out to you. If you call them and you talk to them, now you're just using your best judgment, and they're gonna. It's almost impossible, no matter how hard you try to vet, to vet these stories, because unless you can jump into a time machine and run back to that moment and relive it with them, it's just not going to happen. And people have to accept that, it's our job to tell people what they want them to hear, not what they want to hear, or not what we believe, or what they believe, or what anybody else believes. This is the story this person wants to get told, and they wanted it told bad enough that they were willing to send an email to Nance or to Leslie or to Cam. And I have a few in my my inbox right now that, not necessarily all cryptids, but I'm putting together. I do an occasional video called Letters from Friends, and I'm putting together one now that's got, people want to hear their story, and they want it told in a safe place where they don't necessarily have to give their name, they don't necessarily have to give their location, and they don't have to be the one standing there being, lambasted for what they're saying.
Yeah.
That becomes our job. And 90% of this is what I personally believe. The original group of men who went out and really started doing all of this research were people like Tom Slick, Peter Byrne, Renee DeHinden.
The old, who else?
Grover Kranz.
Yeah.
All of those guys. Grover Kranz was probably the nicest of the group, but most of them were complete assholes. They were just horrible people themselves.
Yeah.
And as other people came into the community, they were mimicking the ones they saw as the experts. And so they were mimicking the asshole behavior. I honestly believe that a lot of what is wrong with our community now hasn't got anything to do with how we feel about each other. It has everything to do with the fact that we're all still looking back at Renee DeHinden and trying to be like him. And he was an asshole. He was so bad that they made a character in Harry and the Hendersons after him.
Oh, is that Jacques?
Yeah, that is.
Okay.
He's written after Renee DeHinden. That's what a horrible human being that man was.
Oh, wow.
And I think that that's the biggest problem that we have. And then you add in the people who want to belong at all costs. And those are the people that will, they'll write in and they'll tell you that I saw Bigfoot. I know it was Bigfoot. It came up to my front door. It rang on their doorbell and yelled trick or treat. And by golly, if I didn't give it some candy, it was going to come in and it was going to crap all over my house. You know that those are not true stories. And those are the people who want to belong at all costs because they need to belong to. And it's so funny because the last community that's going to be accepting of them is the one you would think would be the most accepting, which is the community that believes in something no one else believes in.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I think that all goes back to that original group of men where they were all jackasses. And so people think that, well, if I'm going to be big in this community, I need to act like those truly legends. And I'm not saying none of them, they weren't bad researchers. They were fantastic researchers. They presented us with a lot of information, but they weren't the kind of men that I trust to have my back in a fight.
It's an interesting take on that. I never thought that way. Like, the way the state of affair is now because of the people back then, but it kind of makes sense.
All I can say is that over time, fewer and fewer people are going to remember these names. And when they do, they're only going to remember the positives. And a lot of that negativity is, and I even see it now. I see it washing out now compared to what it was even 10 years ago. 10 years ago, if you watched the Bigfoot Outlaws, then by golly, you'd better not be watching Wes Germer. Or I don't know if Wes Germer was an opposite, but there were some people you could watch and you could be supporters of them. But if you were supporters of these people over here too, then there was something seriously wrong with you because you couldn't be on both sides of that fence. And it's like, but guys, there's no fence there. They're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah, it's like the Woo versus Flesh and Blood.
Yeah. I have there back in the day when I first got started, there was fighting about if you believed in the Woo, you were a crackpot. But now I think times have changed so much because all this evidence is coming out in support of the Woo, and I'm waiting for a whole bunch of apologies to come flying out soon. I actually keep going to one channel and saying, don't you owe so-and-so an apology? I won't name names, but it was pretty bad for a while there. Just the worst comments being made. And anybody that watches that channel, you're all a bunch of nut jobs. And I'm like, he came out with all the proof, like, not the proof, I can't say that, but the evidence weighs a lot in favor of the Woo, and some stuff is going on that we can't explain. And interesting enough, he's now supporting that way of thinking too, this one gentleman I'm talking about. But I just honestly think we are all on the verge of something big, and it's going to happen soon.
Well, what the hell's going on with all these UFOs and balloons and shit that keeps getting shot down? I mean, what is that? A distraction? What's going on there? This doesn't make sense.
Where our government is concerned, anytime they're holding out a mirror out here, they're doing something over here. We don't want to be looking. Yeah. And so, I think distraction automatically. But interestingly, it was a DA I wasn't on. I was watching DA Roberts. He had a special the other night talking about a press conference that happened in the middle of the first quarter of the Super Bowl. They didn't break in. They didn't interrupt any channels. They just had this quiet little press conference saying they didn't... They shot a fourth one down. They don't really know what it was. It may have been a balloon. It may not have been. We don't know. And then in the course of his show that he was doing this live stream, the press conference disappeared.
Yeah. Well, supposedly the Russians shot something down too. I don't know. It's just weird. There's so much, like it just reminded me because, you said you think there's something big coming, Leslie. And
Look, somewhere out in outer space, there's some aliens going, you know, they send balloons to kids at birthday parties. That'll be a nice thing. We can send them a balloon. They'll love us. We'll be best friends.
Why do they keep popping our balloons?
Besties. What the hell? Maybe we should have sent a card and a cake or something. I really do. You know, people are not being reasonable. Least of all, the people who should be. But oh well. Anyway, Nance, you're being quiet. That's not
Very
like you.
quiet.
I'm interested in what everyone else has to say. Usually I'm the one on the spot having to do all the talking, and it's really nice to hear what other people think. So, you know, going back real quick, I did want to say you were talking about the one Neoma, the crazy story. You're like, are you for real? I have to say, I'm just going to throw this out there. My favorite crazy, no way in heck I'm ever going to narrate story was the guy who insisted that he had a flat tire on his pickup truck, pulled over, and out of the woods came Bigfoot, who offered to help and held up the back of his truck while he changed his tire. But wait, when they were done, he motioned for Bigfoot. Bigfoot hopped in the truck. They went on down the road to Wendy's, and he got him a burger and a frosty.
Wait a minute. I think I just read that.
If you had included, a jar of honey in that, it's almost identical to one that I tossed back.
Okay, see, I tossed it back too. I said, no, this did not happen. He's like, you said you wouldn't judge. And I said, no, what I even said going all the way back to my very first interview with David Hensley at Paranormal Road, I said, if I can believe it happened, I'll stretch my mind to accept it and I'll do it. But if I'm like, oh, ain't no way, that's just, it's not judging. I just can't believe. I can't stretch to believe it. So
Sure.
whether it happened or not, I'm not saying it didn't. I'm saying I can't stretch my mind to believe that. So that was my funny. So it was probably the same guy. He just thought he'd literally sweeten it with a little bit of honey for you.
There you go.
So,
yeah, that was
like some doozies.
Yeah.
That's funny.
You would be shocked. I'm telling you, some of the things that people will write in that they've, experienced.
And it goes back to what somebody asked earlier about vetting them. Especially in my first year, people were like, don't you research these? Don't you verify? Don't you investigate? No. At that time, I was still a full-time business analyst for a Fortune 100 company here in Cincinnati. I did not have time. I could not go on site. I could not investigate. At the time, I was dealing with elderly in-laws, doing their cooking, their cleaning, their laundry, their grocery shopping, and then I still had to do all mine. So no, I didn't. I really tried to be this space that people could come, they could tell their story. And it kind of goes back to one of the first things you asked, which was, how did I get on this path? And one of the things I meant to include was, several years ago, I had gone to a Bigfoot convention here in Ohio up at Salt Fork. And as you do in between different people speaking, you start talking to other people sitting in your row or whatever. And it was always the same. Have you seen one? Have you seen one? And I was like, no. They're always like, well, I did. Really? Tell me about it. So they would tell me, and I'd say, well, have you reported this? God, no, I'm in the middle of a divorce. He'd use that against me. Or my employer is ultra Christian. If I don't say that the earth is only 3,000 years old, I'm going to get fired. So everybody had a reason they didn't want to share it. They didn't want to put their name on it. I don't think that removed any credibility from their experience. And it kind of just formed, if they don't want to tell it, could I tell it for them? And it has happened. A lot of people want to stay anonymous when they've submitted things to my channel, but just as often anymore, they'll give me the name, they'll give me a phone number, they'll give me everything under the sun.
Yeah.
I don't put that out there for the whole internet because, let's face it, there's a whole lot of crazy on the internet. Putting it in a book where somebody has to A, buy the book, or B, find
Actually
it.
read it.
That's a whole different thing than putting it out there on the internet. I've had to explain that to a lot of people who are like, well, their names are in a book. And how many people have actually read that book? You brought up a point. How many people have read it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a whole different world now. 20, 25 years ago, very few people were in control of the whole narrative. All of the information pretty much that flowed from any report given all the way out to what people like us consumed. And with the invention of the internet, they lost a lot of that control.
Yeah, that changed everything.
And it was a game changer. And going back to what, Neoma just said about those original guys, their heads would have exploded if the internet had been around in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. Because really, they wanted to be the authority on something we have not yet studied. And the internet gave everybody a voice. And I don't know how some of those men would have taken to everybody being able to throw their hat in the ring, which is what we have all done and will continue to do, hopefully. So,
well, in the end, as much as you want to believe their stories, it's up to the listener to decide whether they believe it or not. And I get that you can't vet everything. You just cross your fingers and hope for the best, I suppose. But yeah, people get upset. I've seen it in chats. Oh, how do you know that's true or whatever? I don't know it's true. It's up to you.
That's the whole basis. I mean, look at Cam's podcast. What did he name it? What if it's true?
Yeah, that's a good podcast.
Yeah, because they all have that absolute being 100%. I mean, it's plausible, but other people will say not. But it's up to the listener to decide, in my opinion. And I think that's where we are with the whole Bigfoot community. Some things are certainly outside my ability to embrace and believe. I'm not going to say it didn't happen. It's more than I can digest and believe. Sure. I hope that makes difference. That little bit of, hope it makes sense. That little bit of difference. So.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you have one of the most, I would call it, profound sayings in the whole industry
100%.
That applies to Bigfoot. It applies to UFOs. It applies to paranormal. And it's your saying of absence of proof is not proof of absence.
Yeah.
Let me clarify. I cannot take any credit for that. I've been asked that a million times.
But you use it. I've heard it before.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know you use it.
I do want to set the record straight on that. It stuck with me, and I found out in my memory, as you often do, over years, things will kind of change. Where this stemmed from is, how when you're in school, teachers put up these cool sayings on the walls for you to look at all year, right? Well, in one of my science classes, I think I was in 8th grade, I was at the front of the row, and it was right there in front of me. I think it was from Carl Sagan. I believe it was from Carl Sagan. Now, I don't want to say how old I am, but we're talking 35 years down the road. I think I paraphrased it. I think it was supposed to be absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. And somehow my mind morphed it. But no, I didn't come up with that. Let's set the record straight. So many people said, you stole that. I said, I never
care.
I don't think you ever claimed it.
No.
It's so perfect for the subject at hand. It's perfect.
Well, it's so profound because it stuck with me for 30, 35 years. I mean, long after I left junior high. That was actually something I used as a litmus test on a lot of things about, just because I don't have evidence doesn't mean, so it's just.
Do you know that Teesprings uses your emblem for advertisement?
I have no idea. Yeah. I mean, I had merchandise that's being supposedly made on Teespring, but I didn't know they were using. You mean like the Buckeye Bigfoot logo?
Yep. And absence, the whole thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like on their just their main homepage.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Cool. Yeah.
Can you get a screenshot for me? I mean, I don't mind. I mean, that's only free advertisement for me, but I'd like to see it.
Yeah, sure, I'll do it. I'll do it for you next time. Tonight when I get off here, I'll do it. Yeah.
And,
I thought, oh my God, that's
not
cool.
Teespring. That's what you were thinking. No, a friend made this for me.
Yeah.
It has Sasquatch on the back.
So
yeah. So no, if that's what made you think of it, but no.
No. But that's the one though.
I will have to I'll have to look for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you had mentioned that too, Leslie, recently.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank everybody in chat for showing up. Wow, there's a whole bunch of you guys here tonight. We're at 155 watching.
Wow. That's
good.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I broke 100. It's good to see everybody. A lot of new names. So you guys brought a lot of new people to the show, which is awesome.
Yeah, and seeing some friends out there. Lenita and Irene, and I'm pretty sure my friend Gwendolyn's out there.
Tattooed biker.
Yeah, I saw Ted. I saw Figgy. I know Figgy's out there. I saw Steve.
Gary.
Spikes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things
Figgy.
I know.
Yeah.
I feel like
Judy.
Romper Room.
We should start talking about the guys in there. Yeah.
Trisha.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw it out to the chat,
Or is it
and
Tricia?
if you guys have any questions, address whomever you want to ask the question to. If it's all, just put all, and please put the questions in caps so we can see them. Just the ladies have agreed to answer questions, so whenever you guys are ready and want to start asking questions, feel free. Might take a while. I know, right?
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, thank you, Gary.
Gary says, I don't miss any of y'all's shows.
Yeah.
And I don't either. But it's funny. I look through, like, you know how when you watch a video, it'll, if you've watched it already, on the bottom it has a red line saying, okay, you've watched that, or how far you've gotten into it. The only, like, even on anybody's shows, like Cam's or anybody's, all the Bigfoot stories I've watched, but then you get to something that's maybe something a little different, a Dogman, or I don't watch them. It's weird. I go through, see how many I watched, and I'm like, why didn't I watch? Oh, never mind. Why didn't I? No, never mind.
It is
I don't
true
know.
because my numbers go right down when it's a Dogman story. People just aren't as interested.
I have a certain section of my audience that watches the Bigfoot related stuff. I have a certain section that watches the paranormal related stuff. I have a certain section that watches the, just the weird stuff, like my horticulturist. There was nothing paranormal or anything about that. And I can figure how many views because of the subject I'm going to get, because I'll get more views for Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah.
But than anything. But, my thing is this, and just to be clear, I don't have the calling and the talent to do what these two ladies do.
Oh, yes, you do.
Well, but no. My calling and talent falls into looking at the legends that were told before people knew the word Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And so I like to do things about things like that. And I like to let these guys tell the encounters, because I really don't. I like getting an occasional encounter story and put it in there, but I'd rather sit and listen to these guys tell them than to, and then if it's someplace like, Montgomery Bell State Park or Tate's Hell in Florida State Park, then I like to tell the story about that place. And there are really cool legends. And so what happens is I get a lot of people who come to my channel from these guys, because these guys are so wonderful. They talk about me, and I love you guys for it so much. But they're like, where are all the Bigfoot encounters? And I'm like, don't got them.
But what you do takes a lot of research. I mean, there's a lot of you that goes into what you have to write to put that together. You don't read just out of a book. So, I mean, give yourself a little credit. Sorry, Mug. What was the question? I'm sorry, Mugs.
The same thing that scares you the most, Carson. Dogman.
Me too.
Terrifies me. I can't wrap my mind around it.
What's that?
I think for me, it's UFOs, because, they'll snatch you right up. And the next thing you know, you're waking up in some uncomfortable positions. So I know that scares me more. If you're going to be a dog man, just rip me up. Aliens do worse. So.
Well, I have to agree with you. I'm not real fond of waking up to see an alien smoking a cigarette,
No.
It does kind of not appeal to me, but I don't know. It's still Dogman for me. It just terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me. So.
Me too.
Yep.
I got a dog man story if you guys want to hear it.
I do.
My when I first started doing this, I was doing more like research. I'd go out, and my husband was he was such a gem because I knew he didn't really believe in Bigfoot, but he supported me, right? My son, he was the same. He believed that they existed, but he didn't believe in the woo. He couldn't imagine that Bigfoot could mind speak and travel, throughout different dimensions and all that stuff. So one night, my son, I dropped him off at the spot. It was a local conservation area, and I dropped him off earlier in the evening to go fishing. About 9 o'clock, it was coming on dark. He called me, and he was breathless. He said, "Mom, I'm lost in the woods. My headlight is dead. My phone is about to die, and there's something walking circles around me." And then he let out this high-pitched squeal, and he's like, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that?" And he was saying, "Mom, it's growling at me. Mom, I'm scared to death." So, like, I was terrified for him. So my granddaughter was with me at that night. So I told him I would go back to where I dropped him off, and I would keep honking on the horn. So I did. My granddaughter was in the back of the van. She just climbed in and buckled herself in. She was 7 at the time. And so I did. I parked right where I dropped him off and laid on the horn. Finally, after about 5 or 10 minutes, my son comes walking up the road. He was all scratched up, sweating. He was scared to death. So I got him calmed down. He was about 18, 17 at the time. And I called my friend Vic Cundiff. I called him and I told him. He said it really does sound like he had a Bigfoot or a dogman encounter. And he offered to talk to my son, and he was just so shell-shocked. But I'll tell you, his opinion really did change after that, because he said that it was not just a wolf or we didn't have bears near us, but he said whatever it was at least the size of a man, but he couldn't imagine any man making those kinds of sounds. And then my granddaughter, after we got home, we never talked in front of her she knew about Bigfoot, but she didn't know the scarier side of Bigfoot. And she said, "Grandma, I saw a monster." And I said, "What do you mean you saw a monster?" And she said it was a monster looking in the back window when we were looking for Uncle Brian. And I said, "Well, why didn't you tell me?" She said, because Uncle Brian was just coming down the road, and her frame of mind changed. But she described like golden colored eyes, very, very tall and very, very hairy. And she was an innocent 7-year-old, didn't have a clue. And so I really wonder if that was really what, I can't imagine something else other than a dog man that night.
Yeah.
That had to be just about the most terrifying phone call you ever received.
Really?
It was, because he said his phone was almost dead. I couldn't imagine him staying in the woods with something, like we know what's out there.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, that way. And my husband, of course, he's a truck driver. He was too far away to do any, to be able to help me. But I was so thankful that he was able to hear that horn. And yeah, but it changed his thought. I'll tell you that. He had a big eye opener that night.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my scary story.
This kind of you just answered this one.
There you go.
Also,
Yeah.
ladies, have you ever had a story that scared you so much that you were spooked yourself?
Mm-hmm. I've had way more than that one, but yeah, that was the biggest. Yeah.
That's the only problem when you get the questions, it just gets backed up.
Yeah. Nance, you
guys
got an
think
answer
the
for
U.S.
that?
government is holding back info on Bigfoot?
Yes.
That would be
I
the
think
Canadian.
Oh,
Canadian
100%.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do.
I know firsthand because of TJ and Hunter. Both of them are I don't know if I'm supposed to even say that. Yeah, they definitely are.
Neoma, Gary Spike says, Neoma, you sure it's a great? Don't sell yourself short.
Mhm.
Thanks. My shorts are a
Right.
little different. They're meant to be just fun for me, but I'm glad others are enjoying them.
Oh, they're fun for all. Absolutely.
I'm kind of hooked on doing those. They're my relief in the middle of the week.
Gary Johnson wants to know, how do you guys see Bigfoot? Friend or foe?
Neither.
I think they're both. I think
Yeah.
they're just like humans in the terms that there are some really good ones out there. There are some ambivalent ones, and there are some that are just bad to the bone. You just best stay away from, and you can't always tell until it's too late. That's my opinion. They're just like humans.
And I think that just they're like a bear or any other creature on the planet. You cannot put them all in one category, and so I'm not going to categorize them one or the other. I just think that they're not. You can't say they're. I always think of the fireman, the fire jumper, who got pinned in Northern California and would have burned to death, but was carried out by a Bigfoot. And then I think of
I remember that story.
yeah, and then I think of all of the other stories, and there've been a plethora of those, of people who, fled for their lives. Although, in all honesty, I think 99% of the time, if they walked out, if they escaped, it was intentional. They're too big of a beast. They're too strong. They're too knowledgeable of the woods for anybody to walk out of the woods to outwit them or to outrun them or to out maneuver them. I think when somebody walked out of the woods, it's because they let them.
I think that the ones that are in a family unit, like a clan, and they have one alpha male, they're more prone to live by a code, like a rule, like they don't want people coming around them, so they don't do anything to to be harmful. The ones that I think that are doing the really bad stuff are the rogue males. They're out looking to, meet up with a female and start their own clan somewhere, but they're going to be just like a nasty teenager, or a young man that doesn't have a dad to, keep them in line. I think that's a lot what I hear is that it's not a clan. If in the clans, they tend to be more easier to get along with. That's what I've always heard.
By the way, hi Walter. He's a friend of mine, and I had to say hello. When somebody just asked, and I needed to interrupt, they wanted me to name the story, and I believe they're talking about the fire jumper. And that's one of those stories that has been on a million channels. It's been on a million TV shows. I couldn't tell you the name of the fire jumper. I couldn't tell you the year it happened. All I know is it was somewhere in Northern California. And I have seen it on television. I've heard the story on podcasts. I've heard the story on YouTube channels, and I couldn't bring it down to anything less than that. I'm sorry if that's what you were asking for. And yes, I do believe that. I'm sorry. I'm reading chat. I'm sorry. I have a habit of doing
I'm
that.
trying to keep up. My chat doesn't usually fly that much.
I do believe that there are different species of Bigfoot, and I believe that I'm not sure. I don't know enough, but I do know that there are Bigfoot, there are Gugway, there are Janosqua. How do you say that one? Janosqa. Okay, yeah. And I believe that you've got the Yeti in Nepal, and you've got the what's the Australian one? Yowies. You've got the Chinese one that has a name similar to Yowie. And I think in this Yaren, there you go. I'm really bad with names. My kids, I have 2 sons. They are Hey and You. They answered quite well to that.
I believe the Russians have the Almasties.
Yeah.
They're all
and
over.
I believe here in this country we have the Northwest Patty's type, and we have the skunk ape type. We have, I don't know where the Gugway falls into that. The Gugway, it may be the only animal on earth that scares me more than a dog man. Just from the stories I've heard.
Now, was it the Gugway or the Janoskwa?
I think the
Janoskwa were the face eaters. They referred to them as
Gugway means face eater. So
yeah, okay. I think the Janoskwa were the giants.
Yeah, I think so.
The bigger ones.
But Gugway actually means, that's a Native American term for face eater.
Okay.
So,
I'm just looking for more questions.
Yeah, me too.
It's like they were there for a second, and then they went away, and now I'm like, okay.
If somebody asked one earlier, way earlier, that okay. Oh, that's the one right there.
I'm good like that. Any opinions on pros or cons for a cryptid to be formally acknowledged? Like, what's the benefit of it?
No.
I mean, for us, obviously, but
I think if anything, they could just maybe err on the side of caution and just say, leave them alone. Don't shoot them unless you're in danger. But there's too many yahoos out there trying to make a name for themselves. And in my new book, I'm going to tell you straight up, you're not going to walk out of there with the body, because either their clan is going to come out and take that body, or else the men in black are going to come out and take that body.
Well, if they're there to take a body, they're probably not going to let you leave.
That's right. So that's just it. They need to acknowledge it just for that sake alone, that you will be charged. Somebody said that there is already a law
it's in
that you get a
Washington
murder
State.
charge.
It's illegal in Washington State to shoot a Sasquatch. And I've been asked numerous times, well, if they don't think they're real, why would they put that law out there? It was a numbers game. And I think I read somewhere that what really prompted it was the fear that somebody was going to go out there with a gun in the forest and shoot the first thing they saw that moved.
Yeah.
They could very well shoot a human by mistake, or a hoaxer or a pranker. And so if you made it illegal to shoot them, you were going to forestall any trophy hunter types accidentally killing humans. Now, that's what I read. I have to give you a provenance for that, but I don't remember after all this time of where I got that information.
Yeah.
So
the people who...
I'm sorry?
The people like me who shouldn't have a gun, but are not smart enough like me to know they shouldn't have a gun and go out in the woods and do damage, is the ones they're trying to forestall. I agree with you 100% on that, Nance.
For knowing that you shouldn't have a gun.
I used to. That's how I know.
I've never had a problem, so I'm still good with mine. I carry mine 24/7 just about, and I don't have that much of a hothead, Neoma. Not that much.
That, it's so funny. I'm like a firecracker. I make a little noise and I'm fine. But man, that little noise can be dangerous sometimes.
Are you trying to tell us something, Neoma?
Yeah, I'm telling you, I got a quick temper. I'm fortunately, I used to be really a firecracker. Like, that was how a lot of people describe me. I was that sparky little dog that ran around and bit at everybody's ankles.
Let me at him, Spike. Let me at him.
Yeah, that was me. That was exactly me. And put a gun in that dog's hands, and you got trouble. And over the years, I've mellowed tremendously. The worst part about me,
my old age.
Yeah, the worst part about me is I'm an excellent shot.
Yeah.
I had a beer can for years, a Budweiser beer can. You know, it's got that little seal in the front. I think it was a little blue seal right center. I had a beer can. It had one hole through that little blue seal, 5 exit holes. That's how good I was.
Very good. Yeah.
Excellent shot. Scary, scary good shot, which makes me having a gun all the scarier. All the more reason for me not to have a gun, because I will do damage. I will shoot you and you will die. I'll feel bad. You know, your family will hate me. They'll have to pay for a funeral, but you'll still be dead. So.
Yikes.
Yeah, really.
Kaiju Ninja wants to know, what do you guys think Bigfoot is? The ultimate question. I feel like
I'll let you ladies go first.
Well, I'll stick my neck on the chopping block first. I may use incorrect terminology. I'm not an anthropologist or anything of that nature. I do believe it's some sort of a hominid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say that it's a Neanderthal that's evolved in the last 10,000 years. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not saying it's something we're descended from. I'm not saying we're exactly related to it. But again and again, you hear and read these reports, people that have come face to face with it, even when they've had a weapon, they're like, I felt like I'd be murdering a human.
Two humans.
It's when they get that eye to eye look. You don't get that when you look into the face of a lion or even a chimpanzee. Typically, there's something else there. There's an undeniable intelligence that's in their eyes. So I don't think they're human per se, but they're not far off from us, is what I want to say. How they came to be, what exactly they are, I don't know. But I think hopefully we will know someday. So I don't know. I don't think they're too different from us in some aspects.
I agree.
Would you call them a people?
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely call them a tribe of people, a tribe of humanoid type. Again, I may be using the incorrect terminology, but there's something not different from us in some ways.
How about you, Neoma?
I believe they're a natural creature. I do believe that if I'm going to categorize them, like Nance, I would put them in the hominid group. They are some type of hominin. I'm not going to run up the DNA chain to find out how far back they go. I do believe that they're a natural creature. Now, I am not saying I don't believe in the woo. But I'm really going to have to see one transport in front of me before I really embrace that theory. To me, right now, they are just a natural creature. And one of my biggest pet peeves on the planet is this habit of capitalizing the word Bigfoot or capitalizing the word Sasquatch or capitalizing whatever word you want to call them. Because the second you capitalize it, you make it a single monster wandering around in the woods. And that is not what they are. They are a species, whether a species of human, a species of whatever type of hominid you want to call them, or a species of some other, family in the chain. They are a species, and we don't capitalize the word deer. We don't capitalize the word bear. We don't capitalize the word dog. We don't capitalize the word man. We need to acknowledge them as a species. And then once we get to that point, then we can decide if they have telekinetic capabilities, or they can, transport, or they have hollow hair shafts where they look like they're transporting, whatever. First, we have to acknowledge them as a species. And I don't really care what species you want to call them. So that's the way I feel about it. And I'll get down off my soapbox now.
No worries. Leslie?
Well, I'll put my neck out on the line too. I believe that originally we were one, and then we separated. They went their way and we went ours. I also believe that because they've been here forever, they stopped evolving like we did. We continue to evolve. But because they were here forever, I think that there are some extraterrestrials that have mimicked the Bigfoot look. And I believe that's how we have some that can speak telepathically and maneuver between, here and there. They're different, I know somebody that's got pictures that a Bigfoot took on their camera in the middle of winter that are of a forest somewhere that's in the middle of spring or summer. And the pictures weren't on the camera, when they went to bed that night. But so I believe that some have these powers or special abilities that others don't. And I think the difference is that some are brought here from other places, the woo, and some are original species that were, here
Native.
originally,
Yeah.
So,
Well, with an alien connection or something like that might explain, because you hear a lot of stories about glowing red eyes.
yeah.
That's, and then I heard recently that those stories were really popular in the 70s. That was a big description of Bigfoot. They had glowing red eyes.
You never hear that anymore.
Now it's starting to come back. You hear a lot more stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stories out of northern New Jersey where they called it red eye, or old red eye or something like that.
Oh.
So, and that goes back years. So I was just curious about that. What you guys thought about the red eyes.
And then you got green eyes down in Chickamauga.
Oh.
That's a whole different beast.
Nance, I'm sorry if I cut you off. I thought you were about to say something.
Oh, no, not at all. No.
Okay.
I want to say that
what creates that? And same thing with the golden, like the amber color eyes on a dog man. What is creating that from,
An internal,
it's that film in the back of the eye. What is that film called? That lens.
The cone, or the cones and the rods, and then you got your
retina,
cornea, retina. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna just pop over here and hang on.
Somebody had
yourselves.
Well, I mean, different animals have different eyes shine at night. I know I'm not a hunter, so I couldn't tell you, but I do remember hearing the men in my family say, "Oh, they knew as soon as they saw like a gold or an orange, it was this animal," or they know different animals have different eye shines apparently.
You're all right about that. The same thing, but usually there's some form of light that is reflecting back.
I see what you're saying. And the red eyes are independent. They don't need any light. They're not shining.
No, it's just an inner glow.
Okay.
Yeah. The eye shine is called the tapetum. Somebody help me. Tapetum?
Tapetum.
But that's what causes eye shine, as far as
and it's
some
usually
animals have that membrane.
It's more prevalent in nocturnal animals.
Mm-hmm. But dogs have it, and they're not considered nocturnal. A lot of animals do have it. Earlier when you're talking about glowing red eyes, all I could think about was 1931 Dracula, and he had glowing red eyes. Mina. Every time somebody says that, I go back to Dracula.
Was that the 1931? Was that Nosferatu? Was that the
No, Nosferatu goes all the way back to 1919, I think. 31 would have been Bela Lugosi. Or 30. 1930 was Bela Lugosi. Frankenstein was 31.
Wow. I didn't think it went back that far.
Yeah,
I really want you on hand for the next trivia night game. You're on my team, Neoma, because I have to look that up. And I'm a fan of that genre. I am, but I couldn't tell you what exact years
Excuse me.
anything happened.
I'm usually off by a year or two. But yeah, I love that stuff. So in fact, the book I'm writing right now, it's a novel, and all of the main characters in the book are named after either characters or actors who played in the old Universal movies. The main character's name is Jack Pierce, who is the makeup man who created Frankenstein and the Mummy and the Bride of Frankenstein. And the girl is Elsa, and that's after Elsa Lanchester, who played Bride of Frankenstein. And I have to figure out how to get what was her name? Ospenskaya was her last name. Maria Ospenskaya.
Good Lord.
Whoever is beaten by a wolf and leaves becomes himself a wolf. The old lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gypsy woman.
Mm-hmm. Maria Ospenskaya, I believe, was her first name, Maria. She's one of my favorites. I love that woman. She was a crazy old bat.
Ida Bustamante, how are you? She has a question. Do you believe Bigfoot, orbs, and paranormal are all connected?
The Bigfoot and the orbs, I think are. I haven't had that kind of experience, but I know people that have. And they say before a Bigfoot will kind of make itself more known, they'll see orbs first. But otherwise, I don't know.
I think I'm sorry, go ahead, Neoma. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't really have an opinion. I don't know. I don't have the evidence. I haven't looked into it enough. I've just heard it in passing many, many times. Your turn, Nance. Go.
Similar. I have read and I have received many emails with encounters that involve different types of paranormal, or what you would call the woo or orbs with Bigfoot. I'm not saying I'm firmly in that camp. Again, this comes back to what can I stretch my mind to believe? Look, my mom says that me and a kid were talking to a ghost when we were 4 years old. I don't know. Maybe we were. I don't remember it. But I'm not going to say I don't believe my mom either.
Sure.
So I get a lot of stories. What I'm trying to say is that they seem to be connected. It's like I don't get orbs without other paranormal stuff going on with Bigfoot. It seems like there's a big connected ball. Either I get the whole shebang or I don't seem to get anything in an encounter. So, that's one of them that it just depends on what camp you're in. I'm not in any camp on that. I'm like Neoma. I really don't have an opinion. I'm not going to say it's not there just because I haven't seen it or experienced it. I'm not going to say it didn't happen. So
I was on a property here in Florida within the past year and a half.
Sorry.
And it was on a little river. Kind of you hear the word squatchy. I mean, it was in the middle of the swamps. And I put it out there whenever I get out to the woods, usually if I'm going to, go hiking or anything, I put it out there either mentally or I'll just verbalize it and say, I'm not here. I'm here as a student. I come in the name of the great creator, blah, blah, blah. I'm here as a student. I could be a teacher, but I mean you no harm, just to put it out there in case there's anything out there. And I was on this property one day, I put it out there. And the next night I'm sitting outside, I'm sitting on the picnic table, and I look to my left, or my right actually, and above the trees come these two lights, these two orbs. And I was like, what the hell is that? A drone or something? But they were quiet. And then they went below the tree level. They were only 50 feet away from me. And the two of them split up, and I could only follow one of them. And it just stayed, in the tree. It flashed a couple times and it just disappeared. But it was just weird that I had put it out the night before, and then these things show up the next night. So I don't know what they were, but my intention was to put it out there for, the forest beings or Bigfoot or whatever's out there. just so they know where I was coming from. And to see that the next night, I was like, what the hell is that? And made me wonder if they were connected after hearing all these stories. I didn't see anything else after that on the property, but it was curious. Who else? Any questions? Now I'm just looking for everything in capitals, capital letters.
I know I keep coming across these channel names, and I'm, oh yeah, no, that's not a question.
Oh, there's a good one. The military and Bigfoot.
Is that the one about Mount St. Helens?
Yeah.
I just saw that as it scrolled up. Yeah, that looked like a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
There it is.
There's a definite connection there. Yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people who know people who have bosses whose mother's uncles saw people who and I mean, I don't mean to be too flippant about it, but I've talked to a lot of people who actually saw them carrying bodies out and trucking bodies out and airlifting bodies out that were way too big to be human.
I heard that too.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman in chat right now that was in the Army, and he told the story on my channel how he was chosen to go on this mission for whatever, with these he was just a regular private, and they chose him because I think he was a good shot, and they said, you come with us. And he ended up going to this section in the woods. He said, if anything comes out here, you're our backup. Shoot it. He didn't know what it was. There were special forces they went into a cave and they actually shot and killed the Bigfoot, according to this gentleman. And he saw it between, everybody was special forces, and he was a private. So he felt kind of funny about walking up on these guys, but he did walk up and he saw, what they had killed. And it was an interesting story. So you hear a lot of those stories. So I start to wonder,
I have about.
I can't help but wonder, are they true?
Yeah. There's
I believe this gentleman.
I've had like about, just at the top of my head, 5 people that I've remained friendly with who were in the military when they had their Bigfoot encounters. Bigfoot will, either 2 or 3 of them, where the Bigfoot literally walked right into camp as the guys were sleeping, and there was like one guy on like sentry duty, and the one is TJ. That's how he saw his first Bigfoot. He was watching over everybody else as they slept, and they were, hunched down in their ponchos, and the Bigfoot just nonchalantly walked right through, looked at TJ, and just no fear, he just walked right through. And then another friend of mine, similar, he heard voices and was able to see 2 very big creatures. He was looking down at them, and then when he questioned his higher up, he was told to forget exactly what he saw, or else his military career was done. So there's something, I don't know, but there's many, many stories out there from military guys, in my opinion.
Lenita Bryant says, last time, Leslie, did you get my Sasquatch children pics?
No, I didn't, dear. Can you resend them? Is that possible for you to resend them?
Incoming.
Was that incoming?
Yeah. They're just there and there in chat. DA has talked about his experience where his uncle helped move bodies at Mount St. Helens.
Oh, really?
So yeah, on DA's show. So yeah, I mean, there are definitely people here in chat who can answer that question a lot better than probably any of the 4 of us could. Yeah. They definitely, there's a connection.
And I don't even know why people even ask the question. Do you think the government knows? Of course they know. You know, if they exist, they know. If they could
Mox, can you
make
tell
them pay
Lenita,
taxes, they would. You know, what's that?
can you tell Lenita what my email address is? cryptidscanada@outlook.com.
Sure. I'll put it up. Let me see if I can make a banner real quick.
Scanning back
Thank
up,
you.
looking for all capital words. Scanning back up, looking for all capital words. So, two peanuts were walking down the street, and one of them was assaulted.
I'm trying to type this. I can't.
Here's a question. What's the strangest thing that has ever happened to you? And go.
Yes. I don't
Bigfoot.
know.
All right, here we go.
I have a pretty boring life. I don't think I've had anything extraordinary like that.
Well, you talked to dead people when you were 4.
And I don't remember it. I don't remember it.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume, but no, I don't remember it. So
Thank you.
My pleasure. All right. So, yeah, if you want to send anything that that's Leslie's Cryptid Canada at outlook.com. That's her email address. So, who else is here? I don't worry about dead air too much. I know it's like, you know.
I can tell another joke.
Well, that's a good question, Kaiju. Why does the government keep them secret? What would happen if they were proven to exist?
Well, there's always the argument about the collapse of the lumber industry and things like that. But the parks already exist. We already have sanctuaries for them. So I don't believe that. I don't think anything would happen if we said they were to exist. There's no logic behind the government keeping them a secret.
There is actually. There actually is, because they one big researcher did okay, first of all, if they are deemed to be real, they will close down all the national parks, because you're going to have the do-gooders, for I don't know, lack of a better word, who's going to say they deserve their space.
Tree huggers.
Right. And it's true.
And that you have the parks for that. Why would you shut the parks down? The parks already exist for them, for their sanctuaries.
That's just what I've heard. It's just that all of nature as we know it will be off like limits for us, because I mean, if a species of frog lives in somebody's backyard in a swamp area, and then that whole area is now sanctioned off for that species of frog. Can you imagine?
Only if that can be proven that that's the only place that frog exists.
Sure.
If that particular species of frog can be found elsewhere, they won't sanction that particular area. They'll sanction the area that's more logical of the two. So that doesn't hold true with me. Well, we already have the parks in existence. My personal belief is that's why we have national parks. I think that they have put those parks into place for the sole purpose of giving room to these creatures in a place where they're less likely to run into humans. And
that's where we see most of our sightings are, in national parks, though.
Right. So I think that's exactly, but the people have to go into the parks to see them.
And that goes back to Roosevelt, right?
Yeah. And D.A. Roberts made, and I don't mean to keep harking back to him, but he made an interesting observation.
The
and
Bowman
that
story.
that he thinks that was actually Teddy himself.
What was that? The
The Bauman story that Teddy Roosevelt told about the Bigfoot was, he tells it in third, or in his book he wrote it in third person, and I kind of have to agree with this. The emotion that he put into it and the detail of the story would indicate that he wasn't telling. Yeah, he was actually Bauman. Bauman
Can
was
you remind me what was the story about?
Bauman and his partner went into the woods. I believe they were trapping, and they set up their traps, and they had something was going wrong. Yeah. And so Bauman went out to retrieve the tracks, and when he got back, his partner was dead. His head had been snapped off.
Wow.
And he made a dead run for the hills, or actually out of the hills.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, I think that's an interesting theory that and interestingly, Teddy Roosevelt had a lot to do with the creation of the national park system.
Mm-hmm.
So
it makes sense, whether or not it's true, who knows, but it does make sense.
Yeah. Walter wants me to tell a story, and I know the story he wants me to tell, but I haven't refreshed my mind on it recently, and I don't think I could tell it in full, and I hate that. I wish I could tell it for you, Walter, but I have so many stories that my old brain gets a lot of gas.
I get somebody will text me and say, "Do you remember the story you read of mine?" And I'll be like, yeah. Can you tell me? I've got 506 episodes now. How am I going to just pull it out of my head?
I know. Yeah, I have the same problem. I went to a conference in October as the resident storyteller, and I sat around the campfire and told stories all night. Nice. And I picked the stories that I knew the best, and I still had little cards stuck in my pockets so I could look down at, because my mind isn't as sharp as it once was. Imagine what I was like before I did drugs. Man, I was scary smart once. Oh, well.
Let me just scroll down.
How do you catch a unique rabbit?
By the
come on. No, unique up on it.
Unique up on it.
How do you catch a tame rabbit?
Sherry Mack, this is like the second time she's asked this, and I missed it the first time. Could you speak on Bigfoot communicators? I'm not sure what.
Yeah.
Are you talking about like what are the Sea Squatch girls that go into the woods and they do remote viewing, or is that type of thing? Is that what you're asking?
That the Sea Squatchers do that. I know that.
Yeah. There's a lady that pops up on Spaced Out Radio every now and then. I don't know that she's one of the Sea Squatchers, but she does that. It's
Jessica Jones. She does remote viewing as well. Sherry, if you could be more specific, because
he's drunk. Heavy drinker.
Why does Bigfoot sway from side to side?
Heavy drinker.
He's a lush.
He is wandering around the woods looking at all these crazy people looking for him. He's like, I'm right here. Why won't they see me? He has emotional issues. He drinks. Okay, he can't stand still now. I'm sorry. No, I don't. I don't know why Bigfoot sticks.
Somebody sent me an email with the belief that they equated the way that Bigfoot swayed back and forth to the same way that you'll see like a cat do this before it's about to pounce on prey. And not even about pouncing on prey, but sometimes it just helps them get a better look at something. So I don't know if that's true or not. Of course, we don't have a Bigfoot study to know, but
that's actually an interesting theory. I didn't.
And you hear it almost in every story, where Bigfoot's swaying back and forth, and it's usually when they're in the open, because if they're not swaying back and forth in the open, they're hiding behind a tree, just kind of peeking out.
Of course, they can speak at a frequency we can't hear, and if we could, we'd be hearing "Let's get it on."
I mean, you are so bad. I see Sherry just answered. She says, Nance knows Anson, Alman, and Midget Queen. I do. I haven't heard from Alman in a long, long time. I think what Sherry was referring to were there are people that say they have very intense relationships that have spanned multiple years and they assist whole families. I hadn't heard them termed as communicators. That's a new one on me, Sherry, but
that kind of threw me off.
yeah. So what was the question? What do we think of them? Was that Sherry's question initially? Do you remember? Was it what we thought of them or?
Yeah.
She wanted us to speak on them, you know. So.
You know, I've had a lot of contact with two of the three that she's mentioned, Midget Queen and Anson Arnold. A lot of people feel that their stories go to the very edge of credibility. Some think it goes beyond being credible. As for what to say about them, I'm not really sure what you would like me to say, Sherry. I take their stories. I simply tell them quite often. You know, and the thing is, Anson in particular, he's always in the comment section. I've seen Midget Queen quite a few times in different comment sections. So, you know, if you really have specific questions, I would go straight to them because they are usually really good about talking with people. They're not shy about talking with people about what they've had happened or observed. And if you guys, if Neoma, Leslie, if you guys aren't aware, they really do have these intense relationships, for lack of a better word, and not with just one Bigfoot, but with entire families is what they say.
Is this Owl Man the same one that Steve from How to Hunt talks about?
Yes, I think he. What happened was Owlman. I don't know if he sent something to Steve first or me, or if what often happens, people send things to multiple channels.
Yeah.
And, you know, we don't always know it because as much as I like, for instance, I love Cam's channel. I'm lucky to get to hear 2 or 3 of his stories in a month. Just
I agree.
Life. And so I don't always know what's going on out there. So when Alman sent his in, I put it up. People were inflamed. I was accused of plagiarizing. I was accused of, like, I got the time to sit down and type it out and stop and type it out and say, please.
Yeah.
I got nothing to do with my life. But I can see why people would think that because they really don't know what happens, that people can send one story to 5 channels, you know, with just a blind carbon copy.
Yeah.
That's what happens. I don't know.
And they do quite often.
Yeah. I got a story one time. I spent the whole morning working on it, cleaning it up. There was different. I had to reorganize it because he kept throwing in, oh, and I forgot to tell you. Of course, you know, you have to go back and put that where they forgot to tell you. And I got it all cleaned up and sent it to Cam, and he sent me an email back, and he said, I heard Nance do this story about a week ago.
Yeah.
I can't touch this. Yeah. So I was like, man, I just spent the morning on that thing.
And, you know, and I might recognize it, but I go to, you know, because I sometimes will, if I have a feeling, did I hear this? I'll go check other channels. And sometimes I will look at all their recent videos and I just don't recognize the headline they gave it.
No.
You know, they may be calling it something completely different, or they may be focusing on an element of that story that I didn't think was a front runner, you know, to get people to understand what a story is about. So that's not what I would have chosen to put on a thumbnail.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, but yeah. So I'm sorry we got way off topic. Sherry was asking about the communicators. Yeah. I really don't know what to say. You know, until they become outrageous or if it should ever happen, that I just can't, I say this is no longer credible. I'll keep putting their stories up. I know a lot of people think they aren't credible, but conversely or weirdly, those stories have some of my highest views.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's funny, the same with me. The ones you think, it's surprisingly get the most views. It's the
You
weirdest
cannot predict. I've had so many people say,
Yeah.
"Oh, how do I get the kind of views you've got?" I'm like, I have no idea. I don't have, I have no idea. I truly, my husband, if he was sitting here, he would be laughing because I've said, Dean, this one's going to bomb. This is not going to, and bam, it's like my top one in the last 6 months. Go figure. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I know. I hear
It's
you.
weird.
I
I did just.
JG. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you guys, because it occurred to me while I was thinking about it. Have you had problems with being unsubscribed to other channels?
Quite a bit.
I think about 2 months ago, I had to resubscribe to Leslie, and
Yeah.
I was looking through your channel tonight, and I don't think I'm subscribed to you anymore. And I had to resubscribe to my own channel just before Christmas.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I'm
having a
having
real
a
hard time
problem.
with that now.
I mentioned it the last time I was on the phone with Cam because I had a great number of my subscribers. Actually, even in December, they kept saying, I'm not getting any notifications at all. And I'd say, well, make sure that the bell's checked to get all notification, not personalized. And then I had a lot of people say, I've been unsubscribed for you. I haven't seen you in 2 months. Now I know why.
Yeah.
I'm looking for my own subscription. So I think that something got broken on the back end of YouTube. You know how they are always tweaking and doing things. But to give perspective, this last year of December, I had less views in December in 2022 than I did my very first year.
Wow.
I'm noticing the same exact thing. Like this month, I've made my subscribers, my views have gone down. Like for each video, probably about 300 views less than before Christmas.
I got more views and more subscribers my third month out of the gate than I got in December and January.
Wow.
So that's nobody else cares about this. We
I know.
care.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk shop, but
No, that's fine. But like I've been doing this for a little over 2.5 years, and we had a captive audience for the past 2 years, 3 years, 2 years. So I noticed viewerships dropping, and it's because people are out now. They're
well, if you look at the algorithm that's not the word I was looking for. If you look at the charts and the graphs, you can see that there are certain times a year when it drops.
Oh yeah.
But it has dropped. I mean, there are some things that don't make sense to me that numbers, and it's not just a case of, I think this is going to do great, and it doesn't, because that happens all the time. But the thing that bothers me is the times that I've got. I mean, we watch YouTube out in the living room on the big TV, and we use my husband's account out there. And I happened to glance up in the corner, and I saw that he wasn't subscribed to my channel. I was like, well, what'd you do? What? Are you going to divorce me? Don't you like me anymore? Why did you do? And he's like, I didn't know it was unsubscribed.
So I think the takeaway for everybody else listening is go check your subscriptions.
Yeah.
People you think you're subscribed to, you may not be. I think it's just something that got broken by accident. So, I know they're working on it. I'm not going to dog YouTube, but it's a huge machine with a lot of working parts. So
I was told when I first started that it takes 3 seconds to say, hit the like, hit the bell for notifications, and subscribe. And so many people say, I'm glad you reminded me, because I didn't. And same with me. When I hear that, I hit the like right away, because I don't think about it when I watch other videos. So it's a good thing to get in the habit, or put a little blurb, a little sign up or whatever, because it only helps us be better creators, right?
Right. Absolutely.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, sorry to get on that topic, folks. Sorry.
Yeah. Enough shop talk. I'm sorry. But anyway.
Did you have a question in mind? Which one? Oh, your question. Okay.
Oh.
Stevie wrote a question. I'm behind in chat. You gotta find it.
How long have you been narrating? When did you start? Is that the question?
Yes.
Well, ladies, how long have you been narrating and when did you start?
Today's my 3rd year.
That's it. Today is their
As of
anniversary.
today, yeah.
Ah, happy anniversary to
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, thank you.
For me, it'll be 4 years, and last part of April. I started like April 26th or 29th of 2019.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
not long. I never narrated anything before YouTube. I get asked that a lot. You know, have you done audiobooks? You done this? You done no, never done anything. And I haven't done anything but this channel except for when I did a small cameo for Carrie Arnold's project and 168. And now I've never done anything else.
Why did you land on Bigfoot, Nance? Sorry.
Why did I land on it?
Yeah, like what pulled you to this topic and to narrate Bigfoot stories?
I'd always been interested in anything cryptid and weird. I was that strange kid who like prowled the library shelves, you know.
Mhm.
My mom would dump me on a Saturday and I'd be there for 8 hours happily, you know.
Yeah.
Clank
Nance.
to the door frame when she'd be pulling me out. But I was always prowling those weird paranormal shelves. And so this is, I don't care if we're talking Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot. I was always that kid, you know,
Yeah.
trying to imagine what the realm was. And then again, I had distant relatives who actually had an encounter. And I don't know, it just started morphing over the years. People kept saying, well, I don't want to tell my story. You know, I'm in the middle of a divorce, like I mentioned earlier, or whatever. And I just thought, you know, I enjoy listening to other people's encounters. I had 12 encounters that I'd gotten between the family members I knew and through them, other people I had networked that they knew over the years, which, let me state, when they had theirs, I think it was 1982, 1983, there was no internet. So the only way to tell your story was you called up the newspaper, you called up a TV station. I don't think there was BFRO. I think that came about in 1995. There was no.
Well, yeah.
So it was even harder to network. Again, it goes back to what we mentioned earlier. It's one thing to put it on the internet, and it's a whole nother thing to put your name and experience in a book.
Yeah.
People would have to go searching for it. So it was hard for them to network with other people. Through them, I was able to talk with a couple other people and get some stories. So when I started, I had 12 stories. I had one for each week. That gave me 3 months. And I thought, okay, if nobody sends me anything else in 3 months, this is a done deal. There's no channel to be had here. It was really just my love and passion. And I talk a lot. Just ask Cam, he'll tell you. And but so yeah, that it just, and then to my surprise, emails started coming in. I thought at first it would be more about Ohio, and I did get a lot in the beginning of Ohio. I don't know if I've exhausted all of them or what, but now I get them from just about everywhere but Ohio. Just how
I remember when you were earlier on, when you probably a year into it when I first started listening, and it was a lot of Ohio. It's strictly Ohio mostly, and then you were like, well, guys, I'm going to start venturing out of Ohio, just like Leslie did it with venturing out of Canada.
I knew if I didn't, I knew if I didn't,
it would be
the channel was
short-lived.
going to die. I was lucky to get one a month at that point, and I was literally begging. I had exhausted every resource, hit up every person I knew that might know somebody, like Neoma said, my sister's friend's best cousin's uncle, mother-in-law, you know, chasing them down. And I was working a full time, helping my in-laws and things like that. I just didn't have the time to literally almost be like a gumshoe to go after these things. I couldn't. I did not have the time. I just couldn't. So it was, go ahead and take them from Oregon and California or be dead in the water. So, yeah. Long answer to a short story.
This goes back. JG had asked this earlier. Is there a code for Bigfoot language, or do they just communicate telepathically?
No, they absolutely communicate.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I think they do communicate, but I don't know what the code is.
Yeah, I don't know about the code part, but I
they
believe
had a language.
Yeah, I don't know if they've been able to isolate any specific words from samurai chatter, but I assume that that is them speaking to each other and saying specific things. So I would go so far as to say, yeah, they've got a language.
What do you think about telepathy?
I think they use telepathy when they speak with us. So I've heard from people.
And I've heard people say there's no way in hell that Bigfoot speak telepathy. Telepathically, excuse me. Personally, I've had experience with other humans where we've experimented and telepathy exists. I'm connected with people in weird ways. I can't explain it. You don't have to believe me, but I have had things happen where they were telepathic.
Every time somebody tells me that, I think something really weird and I like to direct it at them. I'm sorry. I'm weird that way. I can't help it. Nance and I would have probably been best friends when we were growing up if we'd been close.
Probably. I don't know, though. I rarely left the library. So unless you hung out in the library, I probably wouldn't have met you. So
when I was 10 years old, I got in trouble for where I grew up was actually a group of towns put together, and I lived in one of the smaller ones on the edge, and only the 4 big ones had libraries, and they were, you know, fairly good sized towns. The town I grew up in was like 4,000 people. These towns are like 20, 30, 40,000 people. And I decided I wanted to go to the library to get a book on sharks because I was really into sharks. And they didn't have it at my school library. We didn't have a library in my town. So I rode my bike into town and got to the library and found out I didn't have a card and couldn't bring the book home. And when I got home, I found out why I didn't have a card, why I didn't go to that library by myself. Got a lot of trouble. So yeah, I love libraries. I mean,
yeah, I always
look at my bookshelf behind me.
See that.
We're readers here, and that shelf goes all the way to the end of the wall.
I do want to say to everybody that's watching, I see people are saying, you know, have another live in the future. Guys, I do a live twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Normally I don't invite guests on like this. I don't plan shows out. What I do is I put the link in chat so anybody can come on and talk about whatever they want. So, you know, I see there's a lot of people here. If you guys decide to stay subbed, we you know, I got a lot of subs from this. Thank you. Come hang out and check out other shows and you'll see it's a pretty, you know, it's not always like this. It's, you know, there's a lot more cursing involved and no, it's and it's a place to hang out. Leslie's been here. Neoma's stopped in a few times. I mean, a lot of people like to just come and chill here, and it's and I'm glad I can provide this. You know, this was really awesome tonight.
yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that so everybody has an idea of, you know, I just don't do one live show occasionally. I've been doing this for a while, and everybody's welcome. So if you guys have a story that you want to tell in the future, you can come here and tell it, or you just, you know, you had a bad day and you want to talk about it, come hang out, you know. Is there anything else you guys want to say before?
I think Patty is real. I think that video is real. I'm just going to put that out there because I get asked at least 20 times a week in email. What do you think about the Patterson film? Is it real? Is it fake? I absolutely think it's real. I don't think that they had that capability in 1967. Look at Planet of the Apes. There's a reason that they're all covered up to their wrists and their neck and their, you know, they didn't have that capability to fake that kind of costume back then. What was that?
They all talk like this. Their mouths were like cardboard, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they couldn't do it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I agree. I'm on your team there, Nance. I think Patterson Gimlin film is absolutely real.
I just had to get that out there. Thank you.
Oh, wow. It's a good note to end on, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank, I'm going to put you guys backstage in a minute, but I want to thank you guys so much for coming on tonight. I've been, Stevie, I'll tell you, I mean, I've been dreaming about this. I've wanted to talk to you guys because I am such a fan, you know, not a fanatic, but I'm a fan, and I really appreciate what you guys do. and I know everybody else does too. You know, it takes a special person to be able to grab someone's attention and keep it. Well, you know, and you guys have excelled at that, you know, and thank you for what you do.
Oh,
You're welcome.
thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, it's
I've
my
enjoyed
pleasure.
it.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Nice, relaxed atmosphere. We love it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope everybody in chat enjoyed it, and everybody who's not in chat is watching enjoyed it.
And I'd like
Right.
to say something
Say anything.
that if you are struggling with your, and you don't want to just tell your story, just please reach out, because I don't know about these gals, but I'm always, hit me up in the email because I can get you help. There are people out there that can really set you straight and take a lot of your fears off your chest. So don't hold it in. Let it out. Get a hold of somebody. That's it.
It's good advice. Don't
Yeah.
hold it in.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. There are people out there since the invention of the internet, and people are realizing that there are other people out there that
Yeah.
have experienced the same thing or going
Yeah.
through things. So that's
And
a good
you
note.
stop, you know,
End it
when you
on.
have people that have literally been in the forest their whole life hunting to feed their families, and now they are so terrified that they won't go into the woods anymore. That's a sad thing, you know, and there's a little bit of help out there if you reach out. So
Absolutely. All right, ladies. I'm going to put you backstage. I'm going to sign off, and I'll come back and hang out for a little bit.
thanks,
Thanks.
Mox.
Bye.
Thank you again, everybody. It was awesome. I'm going to
Good
put
night,
you back
folks.
one by one. Guys, thank you. Everybody that showed up tonight, all 170 of you, that was amazing. Return, come back, hang out. You know, we have a good time. Ask the people that, you know, the regulars, they always, you know, they come back for a reason. We just, you know, we enjoy ourselves, and you know, everybody needs that time to get away from the daily hustle and bustle and just hang out and relax and unwind. So, you know, here's a good place to do it. But I will be back on Thursday to do it all over again. And I hope to see you guys there. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button below. If you're new, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell and for notifications, and share. Also, leave comments. Let me know what you guys thought. All right, guys, I'll see you Thursday. Happy Valentine's Day again. Peace and God bless.